What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today we've got very big One Piece TCG news. We've got very big One Piece TCG news. We got Luffy Gear 5, and yeah, I know we did actually see Gear 5 Luffy the other day, and then we saw an alternate art of that same Gear 5 Luffy, but that was a vanilla card, and they were promos, and how about a set card? Which is Gear 5 Luffy and isn't a vanilla and is, and I'm not exaggerating, the most ridiculous card we've seen in the game so far. And yes, I feel very confident making that claim. And another secret rare and a couple of other super rares. Yeah, there was a lot of news today, alright? So let's start off with Gear 5 Luffy and the alternate art of Gear 5 Luffy and the manga rare of Gear 5 Luffy. This is the manga rare for OPO 5, no mucking about. They've shown us nice and early. And look, I'm going to be honest with you, right? I pulled the manga rare of Soja King, or Sniper King, in OPO 3 in English, and I traded it in because I'm going to Japan soon, and, made sense. If I pull this, there is absolutely no way I am parting with it ever for any reason. Even amongst the manga rares we've seen so far, this is a particularly ridiculously awesome manga rare. I love this one. And of course, I'm led to believe Gear 5 Luffy's coming in the anime soon, so I don't know, maybe that's their reasoning. So we got all three artworks, but I did promise you the most ridiculous card we've seen. And it is the most ridiculous card we've seen. Kind of awkward on the translation, but I did get there. I have checked with Orange Samurai D, who checked with Hiroshisu, but I assure you I did this one all by my lonesome because I'm a good boy. 10 cost, 12,000 power, same as the other Gear 5 Luffy we saw, although it doesn't have a counter. It's Gear 5 Luffy, it's going to be 12,000 power, yeah? 12,000 is the most power we've seen on any card so far. It had to be. I'm going to be very upset if they print a Gear 5 Luffy that doesn't have at least 12,000 power. Just putting that out there. And then we've got a fairly sensible skill. Activate main once per turn, pay 1, and add 1 Don from your Don deck active. So you rest a Don to get another Don active. So in terms of what you've got to use this turn, it's kind of a tie. You rest one, but then you've got one available. But you have an extra Don on the field, so that's going to be useful for future turns. That's lovely. Although at this point, some of you might be going, well, hang on a second. If you're a 10 cost, then by the time you play this, you've got all 10 of your Don on the field. And then you're going to go, well, it's purple. Purple decks often have Don minor skills that shuffle Don back in their deck. Maybe this will be useful. Well, how about the first skill, Don minus 10? It is on play, Don minus 10. Yeah, so in order to play this card, you've got to have 10 Don out and use all of them to pay for Luffy and then shuffle all of them back in. As a side note, you then won't be able to use the second skill to get a Don out because remember, you have to pay one to get the Don out and you won't have one to pay. But that's not all. You also place all of your characters, other than this Luffy, at the bottom of your deck in any order. So when you play this card, Don minus 10, and you've got to get rid of all your characters other than Luffy onto the bottom of your deck, oh my word, this better be worth it. Yeah, take an extra turn. You literally take an extra turn. And we've seen this, like pretty much every card, I think every card game I play at some point has brought in a mechanic by which you can take another turn. We've seen it on Dialga, who's like the time Pokemon, so that does make sense. Over in the Pokemon TCG, a mechanic by which you gain an extra turn. It's absurd. But we kind of know what the deal with this is. It is literally a case of your turn ends, it would go to your opponent's turn, but now instead it's your turn. All of your cards, which is basically Luffy, just, become active again. You draw a card, and then off you go. You get a Don and all of that. It is just like you've started a new turn, but your opponent hasn't had one. And look, they are asking a lot of you for this. The fact that you've got to get rid of all of your Don is a big deal. The fact that you've got to get rid of all of your characters other than Luffy is a very big deal. But you get an extra turn and you've got a 12,000 power character. And although this doesn't have Rush, you still have a 12,000 power character that can attack before your opponent has another turn. I don't know practically if this is going to be as good as it might seem. Having an extra turn is great, but you've got to be left with no Don and no characters other than Luffy in order for this to work. But then again, you still get to attack with your leader, and then you get an extra turn and attack with Luffy and your leader. And I do think you're going to have to play around with this a little bit, but oh my word, there is a lot going on here. As a side note, absolutely adore the parallels with the OP01 Kaido, which of course KOs every character other than Kaido and is a 10 cost 12,000 power. Because of course, and I think I mentioned this the other day, I'm up to date with the manga. I've read all of the manga. And yeah, the whole Luffy Kaido thing's actually quite a big deal, isn't it? Like their kind of rivalry and fight, that's quite a big thing. I like the parallel between the two of them. This is a ridiculous card. I love the manga rare. This is awesome. But I did promise you another secret rare. How about a secret rare Kaido? And again, we've got 10 cost, 12,000 power. But this time we have a blue card rather than the Luffy, which is purple. Incidentally, all the cards I'm showing you today are purple, other than this Kaido. And the only 12,000 power cards we've seen so far are the Luffy I've just shown you, the Kaido from OP01, this Kaido, and then there's a random Big Mum just kind of hanging around as a 12,000 power character, which I don't know how much I like that. But then again, I kind of do like the fact that we got 3 characters at a 12,000 power. It's those 3, and again, when you get to the end of the Wano arc, you're like, oh yeah, they are clearly the 3 most powerful characters in the One Piece universe. Or are they? Either way, the fact that we got 2 new characters and, that are 12,000 power, after how few we've actually seen so far, 12,000, is honestly kind of a big deal. Oh, I should mention there was also one other blue Kaido that had 12,000 power. I didn't actually shout it out a minute ago. It's still only these 3 characters, but in OP04 there was a blue Kaido that had 12,000 power as well. Let's make sure we got the exhaustive list. So we got ourselves 3 Kaido, a couple of Luffy, and a Big Mum. What's the skill here we've got on Kaido? Again, there is no counter. That is worth pointing out. Well, on play, if your opponent has 3 or less life, draw 4 cards. And look, we're in OP05 at this stage. One Piece as a card game has kind of set out its stall. The rules of the game are kind of well established. Like 12,000 power is possible, but only on the biggest characters, Kaido, Luffy, and Big Mum. That's kind of one of the rules of the game. Well, another one of the rules of the game is you don't draw that well. This is not a card game where you draw loads of cards. You just don't. So the fact that you're drawing 4 here is absolutely ridiculous. That is phenomenal draw power. Honestly, ladies and gentlemen, it is absolutely phenomenal draw power. Like, go over to onepiece-cardgame.dev, search for draw 4, there's nothing. Search for draw 3, there is exactly 1 character, it is the Shirahoshi from OP03, but you draw 3 and then trash 2 cards from your hand, so you get to see more cards, but you don't get that much of a card advantage because you're only actually going +1 there. And honestly, time you play Shirahoshi and end up 1 up, you're actually even. Drawing 4 on play is ridiculous. And yes, I understand it's only if your opponent's got 3 or less life. How realistic is it? Bearing in mind you're a 10 cost card, right? If you get down to the point where you can play a 10 cost card and you haven't taken 2 life off your opponent, they're doing all right in that game, ladies and gentlemen. They are doing all right. It is going to be awkward, I will admit. It's going to be very awkward if you do get to that point where you can play Kaido as a 10 cost and your opponent has more than 3 life. So you have to choose between not playing Kaido or playing it without drawing. That is going to suck. But it is if your opponent has 3 or less life, i.e. they've got to have 4 or more in order for this not to work. This is a phenomenal card. This is a great card. Now, it's very expensive and it has no counter, I grant you, but 12,000 power is redonk, And drawing 4 is absolutely ridiculous. I love this card. There are some powerhouse cards. But what about going away from secret rares? What about some super rares? Well, we've got a Kid and a Law as well, which I kind of like. We are at the end of the Wano arc with these cards. I would like a Big Mum as well, I'ma be honest with ya. So, starting off with Kid then, we got 5 cost, 6,000 power, and we got counter plus 1,000, and we've got blocker. And on your turn, once per turn, when a Don card from your field is returned to your Don deck, add a Don card from your Don deck active. Love this. In a purple deck, absolutely love this. 6,000 power blocker, yeah. Having a counter, nice bonus. And essentially, every turn, the first time you shuffle Don from your field back into your Don deck, bearing in mind, purple love those Don cards. That's very important. You know, they love shuffling them back. This is good. Purple have a lot of skills that put out extra Don. This is just another one to do it. And the fact that it's... And here's the thing. You play it active. That's a very big difference. So essentially, when you're shuffling Don back in with your Don minor skills, they can be rested. So you can basically use a Don, shuffle it back, and then Kid goes and gives you another Don, but that Don is active, which does actually give you another Don to use this turn. Yeah, that's pretty good, ladies and gentlemen. We are talking about some really strong powerhouse cards today. This is awesome. And then we finish off with Trafalgar Law. 3 cost, 5,000 power. No counter. Apparently, Kid's the only one that we're looking at today that can counter. But we've got a really good skill. When attacking, if your opponent has more Don cards on their field than you do, look up the top 5 cards of your deck, find a Heart Pirates type card, add it to your hand, and place the rest at the bottom of your deck in any order. Now, this is a skill we've seen over and over and over again. The classic example I tend to use with this one is OP01 Nami. You play the card, you get to look at the top 5 cards, blah, 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 find a card, it's all good. But these tend to be play skills. These tend to be skills that activate when you play. Having an every turn attacking skill doing this, ridiculous, ladies and gentlemen. Absolutely ridiculous. I adore this. It's a great search, and it's an attack skill, so you can just do it every turn. And yeah, I know your opponent's got to have more Don on their field than you do, but like I've told you several times, one of the real calling cards of purple decks is that they tend to shuffle Don back from their field into their deck. So a lot of the time, your opponent will have more Don than you, so this is going to activate quite a bit. And what we're left here is just with a very good set of cards. I mean, in purple, we've got this ridiculous Luffy that gives you an extra turn, although you will have to pay for it. We've got Captain Eustace Kid, who is a decent blocker, who is going to replace the first Don you shuffle back every turn, which is great. And then you've got Trafalgar Law that can go and search out your Heart Pirates every turn. That is redonk. And then, of course, you've got Blue Kaido, who's 12,000 power and can draw 4. Yeah, I don't like making videos on Saturday. I'm going to be honest with you. Saturday is a family day. I tend to chill with my kids and just do family stuff. I don't like making videos on a Saturday. But when news like this comes out, yeah, I'm willing to make an exception. I'll make this over lunch. The kids are having their lunch. They'll be fine. And this was stuff I could not wait to talk about. But now, ladies and gentlemen, I want to know what you think. I want to know if you think the Luffy is going to be worth it. I want to know anything you want to tell me. So let me know in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at the Wasi. That's where we talk about One Piece and a bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all kinds of fun things. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wasi Plays.